Most of these vehicles were left unlocked, a lot like this vehicle you see here, and they took a lot of things. And a lot of them were mainly electronics and cash. You can also see here they took credit cards, laptops, purses, even cell phones. Miller says at every fair he's been to this year, he's seen an increase in ticket sales, but not at all like he's seen here at DuQuoin. And all of this happened, taking most of us by surprise because there was not even a warning or a watch issued at the time.
Officers have been to this house before.
They have, Eden, and so have we. This was the scene of a double shooting here 2 years ago this month. In fact, Tina Pickens was shot by her husband right here on these front steps. This past Saturday, they sold 50% more tickets for the fairgrounds than they did last year on the same day. Not only is the current extremely strong here, it's also causing several eddies along the river. You can see this counterclockwise formation. That's the current pushing back upstream. Neighbors living nearby were ordered to lock themselves inside their own homes. Meanwhile, deputies surrounded this house trying to get the suspect out safely. That damage here is apparent on City Lake Road, which is where I am. This is just north of DuQuoin a couple miles. Check out this tree here. That's despite not having the World Trotting Derby. 72-year-old Bill Vandergraff freezes the second he sees our cameras. He covers his face and cries as he makes his way to court.
Keep going, okay?
This community leader for 50 years facing felony charges. The Union County State's attorney says between January and May of this year, Vandergraff made sexual contact with a 4-year-old girl. Is there more than one incident possibly?
At this point, we only have one incident charged. As I said, there may be additional charges filed.
Vandergraff's name is still listed on the marquee of the Full Gospel Pentecostal Church in Alto Pass, where he has been pastor for generations.
One of our signature pictures and frames.
He is also president of Friends of the Cross, the group that has raised more than $350,000 to restore the nearby Bald Knob Cross. Vandergraff's attorney says potential donors to the Bald Knob Cross restoration need to look beyond the accusations.
Mr. Vandergraff's just a man, and that project's far greater than just him, and they just don't want this to affect the progress with the cross.
It's a sentiment echoed by Pastor Steve McCune, who is president of a separate board that oversees the preservation and operation of the cross.
Our organizations are going to continue to move forward towards the mission, even in light of these really horrible circumstances.
Defense attorney Alan James shared a message from Vandergraff's family.
People that are out there who are truly Christians and truly believe in the healing powers of God, that they offer prayer for the alleged victim and the people around that child, and also for Mr. Vandergraff and his family.
And Vandergraff posted bond this afternoon. The judge ordered him to stay at home and not have any contact with any children. Vandergraff returns to court August 13th. Janie Goff can get to her home only by boat. She is now returning to dry land with what she can fit on board. This trip, a coffee table, soaked by floodwater.
They should have warned us to get out, to get our stuff out, but we didn't. Whenever I seen it rising, I went to get the stuff out of the buildings and stuff, not out of the house.
Goff has lived in this mobile home for 13 years. Never in that time has the water come close to even entering her home. As she and her neighbors haul out what they can, they add up the losses. The emotion still raw, the water still rising.
I have insurance, but not flood insurance. You can't get it, and nobody here does.
This is Janie Goff's mobile home over here behind me, the brown one. She says when she was notified by officials to get out Monday afternoon, the water was already rising above her knees. Just a few hundred yards away, the Barkley Dam roars. 5 floodgates are open and are expected to remain that way through at least Wednesday.
It's like a really big drop.
Down the Cumberland River a few miles, water now skims under the bridge deck to Samantha Herman's home. She left her home Monday night.
I didn't want to move out of my house. I didn't want the water to get up because I don't like to be trapped in.
Her grandparents called her Tuesday night. Herman says her biggest concern is her family's safety since the waters won't crest for several days.
I have a 9-month-old that the water was going to get over the road where we couldn't get out, and that we needed to stay somewhere for the safety of all 3 of us.
A plan coupled by prayer as uncertainty sets in. Tammy Lloyd buried her grandmother Wednesday in Harrisburg. The entire family understood that Edith Lucas paid for her funeral years ago, but they quickly learned that money is nowhere to be found.
I was in shock. I didn't know what to do.
The family contacted another funeral chapel after calling Gaskins Jones Funeral Home and getting this recording.
You have reached Great Gaskins Funeral Home. Due to personnel situation, if this is a call regarding a death, we ask that you call another funeral home.
I went to Gaskins Jones only to find the doors locked. Investigators say the business closed about 3 months ago. Lloyd has the paperwork to prove her grandmother paid for the funeral. She obtained a copy of the check from 2007 deposited by Gaskins Jones and a copy of the contract with John B. Jones' signature on it. But those investigating the funeral home say they cannot find the money or even a record of the contract. All this while Lloyd is already emotional, dealing with the death of her grandmother.
But to have to turn around and deal with someone taking advantage of her while she was alive, and thus having to deal with this type of tragedy as well as her death. It's, just unimaginable.
John B. Jones took over Gaskins Jones a few years ago with Greg Meredith of Carbondale as his majority shareholder. Meredith's attorney says his client was left in the dark and only learned of issues at the Harrisburg funeral home after calls to him from families. Lloyd has a word of warning for anyone thinking about paying for a funeral ahead of time.
Put it in a separate account set aside in their name with a family member on it, so their services will be taken care of.
Just before this tree, officials say a 20-year-old man decided to go swimming in the mighty Mississippi. It was 3:20 Sunday afternoon. Within minutes, the swimmer was taken under. Cairo Fire Chief John Meyer is heading the search efforts.
We're thinking that he may still be somewhere in this area, because you do see we have a huge eddy on both sides.
Not only is the current extremely strong here, it's also causing several eddies along the river. You can see this counterclockwise formation. That's the current pushing back upstream, which means the swimmer could be anywhere. 7 boats are now combing the Mississippi, looking for any sign of the missing man. The problem, Meyer says, is the current is too swift. He says it would help if the river were higher.
With it being so muddy and murky, it's distorting our readings.
The search began with boats from just Cairo and Olmsted fire departments. Now the Missouri State Water Patrol and Illinois Conservation Police are helping. Both state agencies took to the water Monday morning, equipped with technology the smaller departments don't have.
They have sonar, Coast Guards here, they have sonar also, just to help us. We've tried dragging, we're unable to drag at this time due to the turbulent waters.
Chief Meyer says crews will continue to search until they find the missing swimmer. His priority right now, he says, is bringing closure to the family. In Cairo, Jeff Stensland, News 3.